Tonight on News 5 Live, 2 murders in Orange Walk. Darren Gentle is shot and killed while he accompanied someone to conduct an alleged drug transaction. The body of an unidentified Hispanic man is also found between 2 crypts. Jamie Marin is arraigned on a battery of charges, including murder, following a deadly stabbing of his cousin in Kakaako village. A dynamic week within the United Democratic Party. Deputy Prime Minister Patrick Faber goes one-on-one with News 5 on the state of play inside the UDP. And the Danny Mason trial is wrapping up with final submissions by attorneys for the Crown and the defense. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
With over 100 years of service excellence in Belize, the Belize Bank Limited recognizes
evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Thursday, October 24th. I am Marlene Cuellar. An employee of the Ministry of Transport was gunned down in Orange Walk town on Wednesday night. Darren Gentle was inside a vehicle when he met his death. The vehicle was parked on a dark area of Palmar Street, and there are reports that someone else was inside the vehicle. Gentle, who is the son of the CEO of the ministry, was killed on the spot. It is not yet confirmed what led to the shocking murder, but police are following a lead that it may have involved a drug deal. Here is Dalila Ikal and Dwayne Moody.
27-year-old Darren Gentle reportedly came in this area around 7:30 last night in a gray and white Chevrolet, accompanied by someone he knew. They turned into a dirt road across the highway from the A&R warehouse just after the roundabout. The road leads to San Jose Nuevo Palmar village, but the duo stopped just a few yards into the road. Reports indicate that Gentle's companion was to meet someone to allegedly make a drug transaction. A third person arrived and spoke with Gentle's friend, who was seated in the passenger seat. While both conversed, a fourth man is said to have opened the back door of the vehicle and opened fire at Gentle, fatally wounding him. The gunman then turned on Gentle's friend, who quickly exited the vehicle and dashed into the bushes. He scrambled through a patch of high grass and came into an unfenced yard just a few yards from the road. He approached the house and frantically knocked on the door. Someone who had seen him emerge from the grass opened their door. The individual asked that they call the police. He also begged that someone go with him to check on Gentle, but residents were hesitant. One of them, who commented off camera, said he heard the gunshots and came out to investigate what happened. That's when he met Gentle's friend.
Pues 3 balazos y nosotros levantamos con mi hijo y pues nosotros salimos, pero al ratito corrió el cuate así por la Zacatal y con el otro vecino y está tocando puertas que quiere auxilio y nosotros pues yo les dije porque está preocupado que quiere auxilio, nosotros no podemos, pero nosotros pensamos que estaba vivo él, ¿vio? Que quiere auxilio para llevarlo al hospital, no sé, pero está preocupado él.
Y cuando se acercaron al vehículo, ¿qué fue lo que observaron?
Pues las puertas están así abiertas y yo lo vi así, que está enfrente y está volteado así por un lado. Nosotros pensamos que está vivo.
Police arrived shortly after and processed the scene. Gentle's companion remained at the area and was eventually detained.
Ahí estuvo él. Fue cuando la ley le cayó y sacaron preguntas, registraron a él, todo él y pues lo llevaron a la estación.
According to reports, the gunman and the person who was allegedly conducting the transaction with Gentle's friend escaped in a red Dodge Journey. While not many houses are located along this stretch of road, those who live in the area are left uneasy.
Yo tengo miedo que mis hijos salgan de noche por ese lado, ¿verdad?
¿Ya no se siente seguro?
No, ya no me siento bien porque está a orilla de calle, ¿vio? Porque uno, pues, usted sabe que tiene sus hijos. Pues uno ya tiene sus años, ¿va? Pero ellos comienzan a vivir. Pero es cosa que la ley también tiene que ver, cruzar cada rato a ver qué está pasando.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
While persons in the area have provided account of what they saw, investigators say that Darren Gentle was in the presence of another individual and that the pair drove up to that location in San Jose Village to rendezvous with a group of men when they were pounced upon by a gunman. It is unclear what the purpose of the meeting was, and police are tonight looking for one suspect in connection with the murder.
On Wednesday, the 23rd of October 2019, around 7:30 p.m., police visited a road north of A&R Distributors in San Jose Village, where they found the lifeless body of Darren Gentle, 27 years, office assistant at the Ministry of Works with gunshot injuries, motionless, apparently dead, inside a vehicle. Information received was that he was along with another male person. They went to the area to meet with other persons. Thereafter, one person showed up. Thereafter, another male person came and fired shots towards the deceased. We are seeking one person in connection to this investigation. and the investigation is ongoing at this time.
We know that a transaction was going on. Was it an illicit transaction with the police now?
We do not know at this time. They went there to meet with other persons in that area.
Even as investigations continue in the murder of Darren Gentle, this afternoon the body of another murdered man was found at the Orange Walk Cemetery. At this time, he's being classified as John Doe, pending the verification of his identity. In less than 24 hours, Orange Walk police were called to the gruesome crime scene at one of the cemeteries in the town. Around 2 o'clock, police went to the cemetery at the corner of San Antonio Road and Dunn Street. There, scenes of crime technicians pulled the body of John Doe from between two crypts in a mausoleum that is located just a few feet from the entrance to the cemetery. The body was discovered in broad daylight around 1:45 in the afternoon by a passerby in the area. The victim, police say, had extensive injuries to his head and face. He had been bludgeoned to death with a concrete cross. It is suspected that he had been killed several hours before the body was found. The body was taken to the Northern Regional Hospital morgue where it awaits an autopsy. We'll have more on this in Friday's newscast. This morning, Jamie Marin was escorted to court for arraignment for the murder of his cousin Isaac Marin and a slew of other charges. 17-year-old Isaac was stabbed on Tuesday night inside his home at Kakaako and died soon after while receiving treatment at the clinic. His brother Carlos also came under attack from Jamie and remains hospitalized at the Carl Hushta Memorial Hospital. Jamie is well known on the island. He suffers from mental health issues. The trio were all at the house when Jamie became violent and attacked the siblings. His state of his mind is under evaluation. Here's News 5's Isani Caetano.
28-year-old Jaime Marin, accused of fatally stabbing his cousin and injuring several others on Monday night in Kakaako village, was arraigned today before Senior Magistrate Aretha Ford. The sanity of the islander at the time of the deadly attack has been called to question, as it is known that Marin has a history of mental illness. Nonetheless, he appeared before the court with his faculties seemingly intact, as he was read a raft of charges stemming from the incident.
He has been arraigned on 4 charges, 1 count of murder, 1 count of attempt murder, 1 count of dangerous harm, and 1 count of use of deadly means of harm.
This is resulting from an altercation in which he was attacked, or was he the aggressor?
I haven't gotten full instructions as yet, but there was an altercation, there was an incident, a violent incident in Kakaako involving the defendant and 2 other individuals. But as I say, to comment further on the matter, I wouldn't be able to comment further on the matter.
What about the issue of his mental soundness? I know that that came up in court insofar as where he would be housed while he's on detention.
Right. The issue of his mental capability came up, and while there is nothing concrete from a medical practitioner, as you are aware that the police is treating the matter as a mental issue.
According to police, Marin, who is unemployed, reportedly got into a scuffle with his cousins before producing a knife and viciously attacking them. During the incident, 17-year-old Isaac Marin was fatally injured, while his older sibling, Carlos, was also wounded.
There was some incident he had with his family members, and that, as a result of that, he took out their knives and inflicted the stab wounds to these 2 persons.
Mr. Marin himself also got injured during that altercation. Any move to bring charges against the other persons? Where does the department stand on that?
He received minor injuries, and he was issued with medical forms, and that matter is a part of the file.
While the police described Marin's injuries as superficial, defense attorney Earl Hamilton requested that his client be housed separately while on remand at the Belize Central Prison, pending a psychiatric evaluation as well as medical treatment. That request was denied.
I have been instructed by the father of the defendant that he indeed is a mentally challenged individual. So the matter, what the defense wanted was for him to be housed in an alternative location other than Colby Foundation. Unfortunately, regrettably, there isn't such a place. At Colby Foundation, I am aware that there is a psychiatrist who would come in and evaluate patients. They are housed separately. But we were of the opinion that perhaps if there was an alternative to Colby, it would have served better for him to be at that location.
Jaime Marin has been remanded to custody until January 2019.
The matter comes back on for hearing on the 8th of January. That will be in San Pedro. And we'll see where we go from there.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
Coming up, Patrick Faber discusses the leadership fight with John Saldivar and looks at the state of play for the National Convention.
Girl, that about time you reach my house.
Girl, you know how things go. I busy with everything. But how are you?
The UDP is gearing up for its national convention in February 2020. So this week, there was a buzz of activity to meet deadlines. Albert Area Representative Tracy Panton and Beverly Williams, who represents Belize Rural Central, have submitted their names for the posts of Deputy Party Leader and Second Deputy Party Leader, respectively. Both women are eyeing key positions within the hierarchy of the United Democratic Party, and their bids for those seats come before the October 25th deadline. This afternoon, Deputy Party Leader Patrick Faber congratulated both women for offering themselves for candidacy.
Because tomorrow, October 25th, is the deadline for all submissions for applications for these key positions in the party, the activity this week has been high. I expect to hear some more by the close of the day. And even tomorrow, as tomorrow is the final day for those submissions. I want to congratulate, of course, especially my two female colleagues who have offered themselves. Firstly, Tracy Panton, who has submitted her name for the post of First Deputy, and also Beverly Williams, who has submitted her name for the Second Deputy, albeit that she is on Saldivar's ticket and has declared her support for Minister Saldivar. For me, that is neither here nor there. The fact that these women have submitted their names to the highest positions in our party is a good sign, and it is a symbol of progressiveness. It is a sign that this party is embracing and welcoming women at the highest echelons of power, and for me that's a good thing. I will say, though, that while I congratulate them, that should not be interpreted as my support for them. But I do believe that they're good candidates, and down the road, of course, there will be a decision on my part, and of course from my constituents, my delegates, I should say, in determining whether their support will go for these candidates.
While a few area representatives and standard bearers have come forward in support of John Saldivar's candidacy for Deputy Party Leader, Faber has remained fairly quiet about his support base. Saldivar, who has put together his own roster of candidates for the various posts, is also being endorsed openly by them. So where does Faber stand, and why is he running alone?
I am choosing not to have a slate, so there can be nobody coming out in my favor, because I simply have decided not to entertain a slate, and that is for a number of reasons, but primarily because I am in the race for leadership. I think that in the capacity as a leader, if I'm elected as the leader of this party, that there will be a lot of fence mending, a lot of mending of the fences would need to happen, a lot of bringing together of the divided factions, and that has got to be done by a leader who can do that. And if I'm not aligned, I don't have a candidate at the various different offerings, that puts me in a better position to do so. Also, I have to now speak to delegates from all of my colleagues, even those who are from constituencies where their leaders are offering themselves and may well put themselves up on Minister Saldivar's slate. So I want to leave all of my options open. I am running for one position. And I also view at this time, given who I know have applied, that all the candidates are of good caliber. And so whoever wins for First Deputy, whoever wins for Second Deputy, whoever wins for, well, as far as I know, we only have one application for Chairman. Whoever wins for Vice Chairman, I am prepared to work for them, work with them, so that we can move things forward.
It's no secret that Patrick Faber and John Saldivar joined forces in November of last year to ensure that Philip Willoughby won his seat as standard bearer for the UDP in Port Loyola. Both opponents came together to secure a victory for Willoughby, who was running against Michael Parafit in that constituency. But Willoughby has since declared his support for Saldivar, despite the resources made available to him by Faber. So what does Faber think of Willoughby's decision? The Collet area rep says he prompted Willoughby to finally come forward and choose a side.
I think that because we're in this week of the deadline of the applications, that people have to put in their names, and some see it fit to declare. Since I don't have a state, they can't declare for me, so you will only see declarations from Minister Saldivar and declarations that are independent. But again, I remind you that those are only declarations of individuals, because ultimately the delegates may well have a different voice from what the leader of the constituency says.
Where do you stand with Philip Willoughby? I know that yourself and Minister Saldivar essentially joined forces, so to speak, last year in November, to have him voted in as the standard bearer for the UDP in Port Loyola. But it would also seem apparent that there has been either a rift or perhaps a parting, so to speak, between yourself and...
Well, I'd prefer to call it a parting rather than a rift. Philip and I have had no outright disagreement or quarrel. You are right to say that Minister Saldivar and I teamed up with Philip Willoughby in that convention to ensure that he would win. But I will tell you, in so much as we were tag teaming because we had a common agenda then, I also supported Philip Willoughby because I believe that Philip Willoughby has what it takes to win the Port Loyola division. I have to say that Philip's declaration for Saldivar is a kind of, came as a result of me kind of calling him out, because my campaign resources are not unlimited. And when I say those campaign resources, I'm talking about for my leadership race. And Philip, in my opinion, was kind of double dipping. He was on Saldivar's side when it was convenient. He was on my side when it was convenient. He was in the best of both worlds.
Attorney General Michael Parafit told News 5 on Wednesday that he has submitted his application for UDP party chairman to succeed Alberto August, who has served in that post since 2013 and is going down a notch, vying to become deputy chairman. This morning, John Saldivar, contender for the UDP leadership, posted support for Parafit. But later in the day, Mark King announced he wants back in the fold and run as chairman, challenging Parafit. King is a former area representative of Lake Independence, but fell from graces and was disallowed from running in the Fort George division, so it is not known if his candidacy will hold for next year's convention. At the time, King's ire was against Patrick Faber, publicly lashing out at the DPM for blocking his bid. In a letter to the Secretary General of the UDP posted on Facebook today, King takes a swipe at Faber and John Saldivar, saying none of the two can fill the shoes of outgoing leader and Prime Minister Dean Barrow. King goes on to say that the party and government are facing allegations and public scrutiny, and anyone wanting to become leader must be very clean. After reciting his past work with the UDP, King says that if allowed to run, he swears he will play by the rules and offered support to anyone else who would win. We'll see how his application plays out, which, according to Faber, is a joke.
I have no knowledge of that, but I won't even justify that or give that any time. That has got to be a joke. We're looking for serious contenders only, and we're looking for people who really have the best interests of the party at heart. And so I don't think that will go anywhere.
Attorney General Michael Parafit is also running for the position of chairman of the United Democratic Party. He is being backed by incumbent presiding officer Alberto August. Both Saldivar and Faber joined forces against Parafit in Port Loyola, but there is no love lost, as Faber strongly believes that Parafit is right for chairmanship of the UDP.
For me, anybody who forms the government would be foolish not to to embrace Michael Perifit. I think he would make a good chairman. I think there are things that he would need to improve on, but by and large, he would fit the bill well for the party's chairman. That chairman, remember now, must chair the National Party Council, must chair the National Convention, must chair the Central Executive, must be the party boss. And I certainly see Perifit fitting in that capacity.
The break, the Ministry of Health advises not to let your guard down since the rains can cause a spike in dengue.
Smart introduces real unlimited postpaid plans. Benny's and Milwaukee Tools are teaming up once again to give you awesome
The murder trial of William Danny Mason and the other 4 men accused of killing Pastor Llewellyn Lucas continued today with closing arguments inside the Belmopan Supreme Court. The trial has almost concluded with just 3 attorneys left to make their closing arguments. Those closing statements started on Wednesday with Mason's attorney Dexter Todd. His submission was followed by the Crown's closing argument, which ran for about 3 hours. The DPP Sherilyn Vidal continued with her closing submission today. On Wednesday, Vidal set out her arguments on the grounds that her case was not circumstantial, but that she would show that Mason, Ashton Venegas, Kieran Fernandez, Ernest Castillo, and Terrence Fernandez all acted together to kill Pastor Lucas. Vidal made her arguments using phone records and text messages, as well as drawing on evidence collected by the scenes of crime personnel. Through the phone records, text messages in particular, Vidal submitted that Mason and Lou had a thorny relationship and was far different from the friendly relationship that Mason painted while he was on the stand. In those messages, exchanged just days before Pastor Lou was killed, he and Mason argued over monies that Mason refused to pay him for work services rendered. Pastor Lou reportedly got injured while doing work on Mason's property, and he expressed his disappointment with how Mason was handling the matter. Lou had threatened via text message that he would report Mason to the Labor Department. Mason's messages to a mutual contact described Pastor Lou as ungrateful and called him an idiot. According to the content of other messages, Pastor Lou claimed he was being threatened and also sent messages to say that he knew that some Chinese were being swindled. The video also showed Pastor Lou and the two men being kidnapped and thrown in the back of the F-150 truck that belongs to Mason, and they drove off. They later released the two men, but not Pastor Lou. The DPP in her arguments argued that Pastor Lou was taken to the Outback Ranch and killed, that a pit on the ranch is where Lou's body was burnt, pointing out that bones were removed from that site. The severed head, she pointed out, was found in Mason's truck, in a sack and bucket similar to the ones on his farm. In her argument, Vidal said that all five men acted together to kill Pastor Lou. She says that Terrence Fernandez played a major part in the case, and the evidence against him pointed to Lucas's blood stains on his pants. In her statements against Mason, the DPP said that messages showed that Mason invited Pastor Lou to collect the monies owed to him, and the messages leading up to the murder also show that Mason was the owner of the farm where some bones were found and the vehicle where the head was found. Mason was also the driver of the vehicle the day that Pastor Lou was taken away. On the matter of Ernest Castillo, Kieran Fernandez, and Ashton Venegas, the DPP says that they were all placed at the scene of the kidnapping. Following the DPP's presentation, attorney for Ernest Castillo, Baja Showman, made her closing arguments in just under 2 hours, pointing out that the DPP's statements were circumstantial because there was no eyewitness and no one saw her client commit the murder. Showman tackled the Crown's presentation of the evidence to say that proper protocols were not followed in handling of the clothing and footwear her client was wearing. Showman said that the scene of crime tech could have contaminated her client's clothing. He failed to follow proper chain of custody in processing the evidence. According to Showman, the scene of crime tech laid the clothing on the floor in the office where it could have been contaminated, and that the evidence, that pieces of clothing that is, weren't sealed immediately in front of her clients. This, she submitted, puts into question the integrity of the DNA evidence against Castillo. The closing arguments continue on Friday. While it is expected that it will conclude on Friday, it may continue through to Monday, depending on the defense attorney's length of submissions. You've heard what the DPP's closing arguments on how Pastor Lucas was killed as a joint enterprise between Mason and the other accused men. Late on Wednesday, Mason's attorney Dexter Todd said that there is no compelling evidence against his client and that the Crown has presented purely circumstantial evidence.
The evidence as it was presented in this case, I believe, fell short of a number of things. And I have closed my arguments in looking holistically at the evidence. How the judge treats the evidence is totally and completely up to the judge in relation to it. I'm of the view that the investigation was not thorough. It lacked the type of completeness to bring conclusively what really transpired. This is a case entirely on circumstantial evidence. And I think in dealing with circumstantial evidence, there ought to have been more coming from the investigation itself, which would have lent to a clearer picture of what actually transpired. So basically that was what I presented to the court, and I pointed out to the court what were some of the shortcomings, and let's see if the court will agree in relation to that. As I said, it's totally up to the court at the end of the day.
What would you say to those who believe that maybe you downplayed the evidence against your client? What would you say to that?
Well, I didn't really downplay the evidence against my client. I have submitted that there is no evidence against my client, and the court is to either agree or disagree as to whether there is evidence or not. I believe it was not a disputed fact that the deceased was at the home of my client, and I have agreed on that. I've never disagreed with that. My client never disagreed with that. As opposed to whether there was any plan or plot or intention to kill the deceased, is where I am waiting for the evidence, and many of us are waiting for the evidence as well. And those are the issues that I brought before the court, and the court is going to review that evidence and see whether they agree or they disagree.
This year's Medical Congress is being held here in Belize City for 2 days and is focusing on emergency medicine. Multidisciplinary approach to emergency medicine is the theme of the 38th Annual Congress. As such, medical professionals and frontline providers are being updated on how to provide immediate treatment to patients in life-threatening situations. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
Over 300 stakeholders in the local medical field, including doctors and nurses, converged at the Biltmore Plaza for a 3-day event that started on Wednesday. The annual Medical Congress, organized by the Belize Medical and Dental Association, seeks to bring these professionals up to date with what's happening in the medical field, from changes in best practices to treatment options. This year, the Congress is focused on emergency care.
This is the 38th Annual Congress. This year focuses on emergency medicine. Our theme is a multidisciplinary approach to emergency medicine. We are catering for doctors, nurses, allied health. We cover all specialties, geriatrics, pediatrics, general medicine.
Emergency care is an important aspect when practicing medicine because what happens in the first 30 minutes of an emergency can literally determine life or death. The Ministry of Health is partnering with the BMDA as this serves as a continuous education process for health professionals.
With the Belize Medical and Dental Association, we have different goals and roles in the medical field, but one of our most important is continuing of medical education. We have different sessions throughout the year, but the Congress is a major one.
We have national and international persons who are going to be giving different presentations throughout the course of today and tomorrow. What we try to do is ensure that our staff participates in as much as I can without leaving the public health services unattended. So we try to rotate and ensure that we have active participation, because what this does is it counts as continuous medical education, which is a requirement for an annual license to be given.
According to the Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, the ministry is in the process of retaining an emergency physician for the National Referral Hospital. That additional human resource, along with the ongoing training for triage nurses and frontline personnel, will allow for the Carl Hushner Memorial Hospital to better be able to address critical emergency care.
We are doing, in partnership with the university out of the US, what we call a basic emergency course using the WHO platform. We have trained people across the country, and so training is duplicated at each local facility. That has been happening all this year. That's one. Two, we are trying to get a cohort of doctors at Carl Hushner to be accredited by a university in the US in emergency care. And I believe later on this year we're going to have our first emergency physician, because that is a specialty of medicine. Eventually, I think we want to ensure that all frontline staff has some level of exposure to emergency care, because the triage and the initial 20-30 minutes in any given situation is what can dictate the eventual outcome.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
The dengue epidemic has fortunately been on a downward trend over the past few weeks. Last week, The lowest number of new clinically confirmed cases since the start of the year were recorded. But it doesn't mean we can let our guard down. Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, told News 5 that there is concern that with the rainy season in full swing, there may be flare-ups. The ministry is maintaining its vector control routine and asking residents to do what they can to eliminate mosquito breeding sites around their properties.
Last week's figure is the lowest in the previous, for the last 8 weeks. So the numbers continue to go down. It peaked 3 to 4 weeks ago in terms of total numbers. But with the rainy season now fully upon us, we are going to remain vigilant in terms of any potential increase in the number of cases. Approval has been gotten from finance to extend the spraying cycles. I know that we are getting constant questions from almost all communities saying not enough spraying is being done. But I mean, we acknowledge that because we have expanded the urbanization of the country. Rural communities have grown, so it's a difficult task to ensure that you are able to get every single community on board in that regard. So that is going to be a difficult situation to ensure that you do the spraying across all communities. That's one. And two is once the rainy season has started, you know that spraying cycles follow patterns. You can be doing spraying if you have active raining happening. So our efforts is a community one as well. We are continuing to ask the communities to be fully engaged in terms of ensuring and working with us to keep cleaner environments.
When we come back, transforming the traditional way of treating young men. We'll tell you about a workshop that is promoting gender equality.
Yes, come in. Why, Sean? Sure. Long time no see.
Traditionally, young men are expected not to show emotions and be tough. But is this having a negative effect, and is it contributing to violence? The CARICOM Secretariat is holding a pilot workshop in Belize with a view of transforming the way society sees young men to allow them to embrace their role to ensure gender equality. The theme of the workshop is Rethinking Masculinity, Understanding Gender Equality as a Means of Ending Violence in Schools and, by extension, the community. News 5's Dwayne Moody has the following report.
It often happens among family members where they are overly protective of female minors. While young boys are told to be macho and treated differently, they are expected to toughen up and not show any signs of emotions. But the way how young men are being treated in homes as well as in schools has had a crippling effect on their psychological state and how they identify themselves in society.
You could cry, you get hurt too, you have hurt feelings. And so parents, it's for them to say, listen, we have to change how we socialize our boys and our girls. If you look at it, our boys are told by their own parents, boys stop act like sissy, boys stop act like this. And we wonder why the society is the way it is. Suicide on the rise, we have more young men in conflict with the law, we have them younger and younger as criminals.
The CARICOM Secretariat, through its Gender and Development Program with support from the 10th European Development Fund CARIFORUM project, has been implementing a series of pilot workshops in 5 member states. Its fourth stop is in Belize, and stakeholders within the community, including the church, community leaders, as well as the ministries of human development and education, are being engaged to rethink masculinity and understand gender equality as a means of ending violence in schools.
School is an important place to cultivate the right kind of masculinity. Not the masculinity that is referred to as toxic masculinity, where men are aggressive and men beat up their wives or beat up each other, have no respect. Masculinity can be rooted in peace. And school and sport was cited as an important way to create participation, competition, and character, build character and prepare them for manhood. The study also said that young boys are made to conform to what society thinks of them. And when they behave bad and all these things, they're penalized for it. And sometimes penalized to a point in school to alter their education. They're expelled. They wind up in trouble with the law, and you know the rest from there.
The workshop is a direct result of the recommendations from a youth masculinity and violence report that was commissioned in 2012 and focused on students between the ages of 15 and 21. It showed that 1, boys are being forced to conform with societal expectations or risk being labeled and ridiculed from peers as well as critical adult groups. 2, aggression and physical violence continue to be viewed as normal male behavior, while similar behavior from females is viewed negatively. And 3, that harmful beliefs exist among young males regarding the treatment of women and girls, and it can be linked to gender-based violence. Peter Weller is a community clinical psychologist from Jamaica but living in Trinidad. He studies behavioral science. Weller is the founder of the Caribbean Male Action Network, which tries to build capacity among organizations working with men. Weller says that there is a misconception between gender equality and sexual orientation.
Fear that many people have that sexual orientation is going to be affected by emotional regulation, sensitivity and awareness, and there's no evidence of that. If somebody is going to have a different sexual orientation, they're going to have it anyway. We want all young people, whether male or female, to be strong, to be assertive, but also to be tolerant, to be kind, to be nurturing. We want them to be sensitive to other people while still being able to fight for their rights. And what we're trying to do is prevent these dichotomies that you must be one or the other. One of the ways that has a negative effect is that our boys and young men, because they're taught some of these older beliefs without the context of the healthier beliefs, they don't know how to regulate their emotions.
At the end of the 2-day session, it is expected that the participants will be empowered to implement effective strategies to engage adolescent youth, to raise awareness on how masculinity affects gender equality, and to build capacity of the village that is needed to raise a child.
They say it takes a village to raise a child, but a village can only raise a child if they understand the needs of the child and they understand the world the child is operating in.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Coming up after the break, it's time to say thanks with a harvest. It is a time of the year to give thanks for the harvest. Over at the YWCA, the preschool children and everyone else were today offering gifts in many forms, from food to fruits, to say thank you for the good things around us. As a way of giving back, the offerings will be shared with the folks at Sister Cecilia's home. News 5's Wayne Moody reports.
All things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, the Lord God made them all. It's the month of Thanksgiving, and annually across most church-led schools, primary school children from as early as preschool are participating in Harvest. Today at the Young Women's Christians Association, the students gave thanks by making offerings.
So I always tell people we're more than just a preschool or a health program. We are an NGO and we're a Christian organization. So every year we do Harvest. And we involve the entire compound and all of our units. So this year it's headed by the preschool, and you see how lovely it looks. So it's our way of reminding our community or staff or children that it's important to give thanks. And so we give back, we pray and be thankful for what has been given to us, and hope that the seeds that we plant will blossom into more beautiful things. And I mean that in a generic and very wide manner and sense now, for better things for our country, for our people, for our children.
Parents gathered today inside the YWCA Hall on St. Thomas Street as the children paraded down the aisle with brightly colored baskets laden with goodies. Anything from perishables to non-perishables was accepted. The proceeds will be used in the organization's pantry and to assist Sister Cecilia's home for the elderly.
What we do afterwards, tomorrow the children will go to St. Cecilia's home to donate some of the stuff, what they can use in the daycare. For some of the children there, they will use like the fruits, the things that can spoil. Any other kitchen can probably use. We'll use the majority of what we receive as gifts will be given to this St. Cecilia home. It's really planting that thankfulness in our young people, ensuring that we are aware of how important it is to be appreciative of what we receive and to give. Our motto is by love, serve one another.
Wayne Moody for News 5.
It's a good time for the flu shot. That's coming up in Healthy Living.
More this October with our spooktacular next gen deals. Enjoy 1 month free on any of our services and get free reconnection when you join.
This season of KTV Latino, you can vote for your favorite contestant by using your Digiphone or your smartphone. Digi users will text only the contestant's number and send to 5888. Each text sent is equal to 1 vote, so text as many times as you want. Smart users will text the number of votes followed by a space, then the contestant's number and send to 5885. Here are this week's contestants.
No sé si vuelvo a verte después, no sé.
Y nadie lo buscaba, y nadie lo planeó así.
Oh, mujeres tan divinas, no queda otro camino que adorarlas.
No llega el olvido, y por más que intento, mi mente no te olvida.
Que gano con decir que un hombre cambió mi suerte. Se burlarán de mí, que nadie sepa mi sufrir.
Mujer tan bella y yo con una botella, me dejaré la fácil con la cara estella.
Remember, voting ends on Sunday at midnight. KTV Latino Season 4. It's hot, it's live, and it's only on 5.
Port with a global perspective.
Did you know that this is the best time of the year to get your flu shot? As the rains have poured down the past few days and the expected cooler temperatures lay ahead, now is your best shot at preventing any future debilitating flu. We find out more in tonight's Healthy Living. A sudden fever, aches, cough, and stuffiness are just some of the miserable symptoms associated with the flu. Every year around this time, there's an anticipated increase of people falling victim to the flu.
We do know, looking at the statistics, that Australia had an awful flu season this year. And so when we speak to the flu experts in the north, they're telling us that we should brace for the worst. Our normal flu season should be October, so about late February or March. Okay. So whenever with us the rainy season starts, the rain comes, the cold front starts to come down, that's when the flu virus thrives and starts to spread. It also coincidentally coincides with school getting back in. So September, October, all the kids go back and they share the love.
Pediatrician Dr. Cecilia X says that some often take the viral illness much too lightly.
If it escalates, it can lead to a viral pneumonia, an infection in the lung. It can lead to sepsis, where the opportunistic bacteria spread all over and can put you in ICU. So I tell people, every year if you come to the major hospitals and you ask for statistics, you'll realize that the flu is not something to be trifled with.
Luckily, the flu vaccine is available in Belize yearly. With the start of the flu season, this is the best time and best shot at preventing the flu.
Taking the flu shot will protect you from the flu virus. The flu virus is not the common garden viruses or the other viruses that are out there. It won't prevent you from getting the common cold. It won't prevent you from getting your sore throats and your little ear infections, but it will prevent the debilitating 1 to 2 week out of work seasonal flu that goes around. Our entire staff gets it, and it's because we're frontline. All medical personnel, all the sick people come to us, so we should get our flu shots first. And it does protect us.
It is especially important that children over 6 months, older persons 65 and over, people with diabetes, hypertension, cancer, asthma, HIV, or any other chronic illness get their flu shot. Other adults who come in contact with a lot of people should get it as well.
The police officers, customs officers, immigration people, teachers, precisely. Any vendor in a big store, people at BTL, as long as you have a lot of contact with a lot of people, you need to get it. All school-aged children should get it as well.
As for babies less than 6 months who can't get a flu shot, Dr. Eck urges their family members to do their part.
That entity is called herd immunity. As long as we protect 80, 85, 90% of the population, the risk of it spreading diminishes significantly.
The flu vaccines are usually available around this time of year. Vulnerable persons can get it for free at the public clinics and for a fee at private institutions. And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us, and from all of us here at News 5, good night.